This much action in a long time at breakfast. And it takes a group of women to bring a special energy to this, and the men, of course. Welcome to the men who are here. Very pleased to see you this morning. My name is Christina Panton. I'm the president of Women Media Networks. It's our banner here. We're the ones who put this panel together with the kind hosting of the FCC. We're very privileged to have the wonderful FCC facilities to host this exciting event. And thanks to Tara for actually being very, very supportive of this idea. Someone said it was like being at a wedding. It's so, all the names and all the service around here. So this is really posh surroundings. Thank you, FCC. I did also want to thank SOPA. Christine is here from SOPA, and she supported the topic, but also provided leads on speakers. There are many brilliant people who work at SOPA. It's of course the Society of Publishers Asia, and in fact 2 of our speakers are from SOPA. And I wanted to thank Thomson Reuters and Turner. Thomson Reuters is here at table 6, Turner's table 5, corporate sponsors, very, very supportive of these sorts of topics and bringing this to the community. We are tweeting today, so if you are here on the social side, you can do hashtag WMN Stories. That's the Women Media Networks one. And for SOPA, you can do hashtag SOPA Talks, TALKS. Also very pleased that we have journalism students sitting clustered there. Some people have been saying, who are those people? But they're here actually covering the event, writing an article out of it. So thank you, journalism students, for being here. WMN, just to say very briefly, is an organization that looks at teaching, leading, and networking for women who work in media and content. We define ourselves very broadly, so there's a very natural fit with FCC and with a lot of what you do here in this room. And we are very interested in doing things that bring forward the cause of women in the media and the content industry. And just a shout out to the WMN people who are here working. Vicky is doing social media. Karen is somewhere in the room helping. Shelley is our events person. They're all waving there. So thank you very much for doing this. And our next event will be at CASPA, which is the pay TV organization for Asia. That will be October 24 breakfast panel. And in fact, Chrissy Lou Stout will be our moderator there. So thank you, CNN, for helping us with that. I'm now going to move on very quickly, I promise you, to the introductions. Our moderator is Tara Joseph. Tara is an ex-colleague of mine, because I'm ex-Reuters, 25 years at Reuters. And Tara probably needs no introduction to this crowd. She is very often on the stage because she's a world-class moderator and convener of events. She's even done events at Davos. I always find out things about Tara I don't know when I read her bio. She is the head of Reuters Digital Video for Asia. She's had more than 20 years of financial reporting experience, including 10 years for TV in Asia with BBC World and CCTV. So thank you, Tara, for doing this. We have a very distinguished panel. I was thinking, how do I go? I think I'm going to go a little bit alphabetically. Desiree O, in the middle, is the publisher of Time Out Hong Kong. It's an award-winning publication. She's had a very interesting history. She's been a features reporter with Hong Kong Standard. She's done 6 years at the South China Morning Post as the arts editor, as the editor of the Post magazine. She writes for the IHT. She has a column in Elle Lux. And since the topic in Hong Kong this year is about women on boards, I was very pleased to see that Desiree sits on 3 boards, not just one, on SOPA, the Women's Foundation, and on the Ambassadors of Design. So thank you, Desiree, for being here. I also wanted to introduce Elena Lee. Elena is also a familiar and formidable name in journalism here in Hong Kong as the managing editor for CNN International Asia Pacific. She oversees a vast news team in this region across 11 operations from Kabul to Seoul. And under her watch, CNN has won numerous awards in this region. She herself is an award-winning journalist editor. And she, interestingly enough, was one of the few select media allowed in Pyongyang last year. I don't know if that will come up in today's discussion, but if it does, it will be very fascinating. So I'm sure that was quite a story to behold. And Anne Wong is someone who actually has her foot in both camps. She is the strategic marketing head for South China Morning Post in Asia. But I noticed that Anne also blogs, so you also have your hand in writing, so that's quite an accomplishment. You blog on marketing on the publishing industry. and has, despite her very youthful appearance, has spent quite a lot of years, over 20 years in marketing, so very experienced, including in the UK in advertising, but is a Disney alumnus, and that's quite cool, involved in marketing the theatrical movie distribution and also the global theme park strategy. So quite an interesting, colorful history to that. I've said enough. I'm going to turn it over to our very capable Tara to moderate the rest of this. Enjoy. Thank you all again for coming.
Good morning, everyone. I have a little confession to make, an embarrassing one, actually, to begin with. I am probably the only self-avowed feminist with a North American accent who hasn't read Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In. Really embarrassing. But to tell the truth, I'm kind of busy with kids and a job, and I knew that I had these panelists coming here to speak today, and I thought I'd get it firsthand to understand some of the challenges and excitement that we all face and we all enjoy in our careers in the media. So with that in mind, and good morning, everyone. Good morning. And let me start with you. I want to start a little bit by talking about the excitement of the work that you do. On your way up the career ladder, is there one particular job that really got you hooked on what you are doing?
Yes. I guess there's no one particular job, but there are parts of jobs that got me hooked. You know that I worked at Disney doing the movie marketing, and I think that probably would be called a labor of love. It's a job that you're doing because you love the subject, you love the kind of product that you're selling, and you're enjoying something so much that you don't feel like it's a job. So I think that would probably be one example of a job that helped me along, because it helped me basically learn how to do something on the job. When you're passionate about wanting to make something succeed, I think you find ways of doing it. So you learn while you're on the job just trying to be resourceful. To make a movie succeed. You take a movie, whether it's Narnia or Pirates of the Caribbean, and you think, well, how do I actually make this sell to 12 different countries in Asia Pacific? So then you get very engrossed in what's great about a movie, but also what's interesting about different markets, and how to encourage teams in different cultures to collaborate with you and also give their own personal flair into something. So I'd say that probably, because you're so engrossed in a product, that it really helps you, move up, I think, personally.
So did Disney really shape you in terms of a professional marketer? Did you go through a lot of training there, or was it just the culture of the firm, do you think?
I think, well, partly it was the longevity. I was at Disney for 14 years, so I hope that I was shaped in some way in 14 years. But yes, I mean, Disney did have a really great leadership program, training program, etc. But I think those were marginal compared to the stuff that you actually learn on the job. And also, my feeling is that you learn from the people that you work with. So whether it's the peers that are sitting with you in the regional office, or your bosses, or even the people that you take on board in your team, or in other people's teams, you kind of become shaped by learning with interactions with people, understanding how best to deal with people to get the best out of them, or how to offer your own best to meet other people's expectations.
Desiree, you have a pretty glamorous job just from reading your bio. I know that's what you said to me. It's not that glamorous. I'm only out at parties every other night.
I wash the toilet sometimes.
What do you love about your work? Is it the glamour that surrounds the type of work you do, or is it the reporting, or what is it that really drives you?
I'm going to take 2 minutes just to thank the FCC for having me today. I'm so honored to be here, and what a sexy crowd. I'm so envious because you have great breakfast and I haven't eaten anything today. So my brain's not really working because I never turn up for morning meetings on time, but I did it for Tara because It's such an honor to be actually sharing this table with such great ladies. Actually, my job is not glamorous. I think 90% of it is probably just sludging away. But I think what really keeps it exciting is that I'm a reporter at heart. I really am. I started as a reporter in '94, and the thing that really keeps me going is that I actually get to discover new things every day. So I approach my job with a reporter's exuberance and basically curiosity. And no matter what I'm involved with, whether it's publishing or doing a custom project or doing a magazine or just working on an event, I use that to drive me to do new things, because you meet people, you learn new things, and I think of it as a sort of newspaper thing. If you make a mistake, it's only really a day. Tomorrow's a new day. So that's how I've been kind of going for the past 18 years.
When you say you're a reporter at heart, and I'm going to get you a croissant after this question, I promise. Is that something that you learned, or do you think you just had that in you from the beginning? It was a curiosity, a passion that you wanted to pursue?
I'm quite curious by nature, and unfortunately I was a very bad student. I failed every single math class in college, and the only major that I could really go into was journalism, because it didn't require me to pass calculus. So it was kind of by default. I enjoyed writing when I was a child, but I didn't think I could make a career of it. And when I moved back to Hong Kong, someone was looking for a reporter at the Hong Kong Standard, and I kind of, just turned up and applied for the job, and I think they were very desperate, so they just took me in. And I just saw my first editor last month, and I wanted to thank him for giving me the start that I probably didn't deserve, but got it anyways.
And there's your
thank you.
There's probably some pain au chocolat as
This is
well.
fun.
Elena, I have sort of been in awe just seeing the resources that you manage in the region. You have a news file, staff, a busy region of the world. What is it within that whole area that you work in that you love the most? Is it the news, or is it the people around? I'm going to give you, there's a little red button here. Yeah.
Similar to Desiree, I'm a journalist at heart, but I do love managing. I don't think all journalists like to manage. I've known some journalists who walked into management field and said, this isn't for me, and walked back out of it. I do think there is a skill set that's required. For me, management has been, it's really, for me, that's what drives me each day. And when I was a producer, I learned a lot of my management skills then, I believe. Because as a producer, especially when you're working, I worked in New York and I worked in Asia Pacific, and I have to admit, when I came to Asia for the first time 10 years ago, the resources weren't as competitive as, or as flush as the resources I had back in New York. And it really tells you, it teaches you the skill sets of how to still motivate your one team to get things done. Another aspect of it is, as soon as I arrived in Hong Kong, some of my folks know, I arrived on a Saturday and I had to go to work at 1 in the morning on Sunday. And basically I did that for 3.5 years. I was perpetually jet lagged for 3.5 years. And in trying to motivate a team to get your bulletin out by 6 a.m. in the middle of the night is really difficult. And I think that it was a very small team, and yet I think I learned a lot in that small team of how do you motivate people, how do you get things done, what are you going to do, call people up at 3 in the morning to verify a story. And so for me, management is probably the best part. It's also because you get to interact. I spend a lot of my time, my staff knows this, I try to spend a lot of time in the newsroom, but a lot of my work is on the phone as well, because I've got 10 different cities around, and it's how do you stay in touch? How do you make sure that the person sitting in Kabul doesn't feel like he's in, he's distant from home base, and he's still being taken care of, and that we care for him, and that we're looking after him. And so you have to invest quite a lot of your time on the phone. And so I was just telling my trainer yesterday, I actually texted him yesterday saying, I'm so sorry I didn't speak at all during the 1-hour training session. It's not because I'm upset or anything, it's because I just don't want to hear the sound of my voice. So it's, you have to invest quite a bit in interacting with your folks, and that's probably the best part. And of course, I start my day quite early, but the 9 o'clock a.m. editorial meeting is a lot of fun for me, because at that meeting, our head of the international desk comes in, He accumulates everything that's been happening overnight and everything he's heard from the U.S. stateside, and then how we're going to pick up the ball and go from here, and what stories we're going to be laying out for the region and for the network throughout the day. And that's probably also a very exhilarating part of my morning, because you can make a difference in those meetings. A lot of the times we're so blasé over numbers. You know, we hear about the deaths in Syria, we hear about the deaths in the Philippines just recently, and people can get really almost numb at hearing these numbers and realizing, you know, well, why should I care sitting all the way here in Hong Kong in a very wonderful city? Why does it matter to me? And I think that editorial meeting is very important because we have to break it down. We have to make it matter to whoever's sitting in a very plush sofa in Hong Kong, or whether in Seoul or in Japan. So I think all of us who attend that meeting should really feel proud of themselves, because you can make a difference, and it's how you tell that story. So those, I would say, managing and clearly having an input in the editorial agenda on a daily basis is probably what makes it fun.
Desiree, what's the most exciting part of your day?
Actually being here this morning. It's probably when I wake up and I tell myself I want to invade Poland. I do that sometimes when I have to give myself a little task, because when you're a publisher, you don't really have a boss telling you what to do anymore. We have a head office in London, but they're too far away. They don't really start work until 4 a.m. So before 4 a.m., I'm just pretty much on my own. And I have to make up little tasks for myself every day. So whether or not it's coming up with a new product, or deciding how I'm going to pay my staff, or whether or not I want a new cover story, or organize a shoot, or pitch a story for the IHT. The part of my day is when I start work at around 10 in the morning, and I give myself a little task on what I want to do.
I'm kind of curious how you do that, because there's so many books about how to organize your day, whether to use an iPhone or write a list. Do you actually write a to-do list, or?
I have a very technically challenged existence. I actually don't have an iPhone. I have a dumb phone. I have a Motorola Razr. It's completely, I'm just hoping it doesn't die on me. What I actually do, I steal notepads from hotel rooms, because they're just the right size to write 10 things to do. And I hope to get through the 10 things by the day, and I cross them out. And there's a certain joy in doing that. So I'm probably very disorganized, desk-wise and time-wise and everything, but in my head, everything is kind of together.
And what's the favorite part of your day as you go through the motions of being a senior exec?
I was worried you were going to ask me the same question, because I can't really think of a particular time of day. I mean, I'm a morning person, so I'm happy in the morning, and I'm usually exhausted at night. But I suppose the time of the day that I'm most engaged is when, you know, an idea pops up, and it could be from, you know, it could be any time of day, really. It could be in a meeting or something, but it's that moment when you have, like, a great idea to do something, and then I get really excited, and that's about the only time you get any animation out of me at all, really. It's like, all the rest of the time I'm pretty, and suddenly if I have an idea that I want to do something, and it usually is that kind of ad hoc in some ways. Working at South China Morning Post, it's a 24/7 business. I mean, ultimately, news can pop up any time. It could be a piece of content marketing you want to do, or it could be a new exciting idea for some CSR program or something to help the community. It could be a PR idea. It could be anything. So the most exciting part of the day is when something new pops up, and I love that kind of challenge.
Elena, if I can ask you, in terms of how you got to where you are, you mentioned working overnight as a producer. Is your success down to hard work, luck, a combination? What do you think gave you so much success in your career?
Yeah, I get that asked quite a bit, and I'd say, you know, there's a saying, I'm sure many of you heard, that success is 99% hard work and 1% good luck, and I really do believe in that. I'll go back to my first job. I know that was asked later, but of my career in CNN, there are two jobs that I really, really enjoyed. But I'll just go with the first one. The first job I had at CNN, like most of your first experiences and everything, you always remember whether it's good or bad. So my first job at CNN was an associate producer, which is the entry level at CNN. And I remember my producer saying, I want you to call this person up and find out find some research about this company. So I had to call this person up on Wall Street, and it was a woman who answered the phone. And it was my cold call. She took my call, which really impressed me. And I started asking her questions, and she started to give me an answer. And she said, well, the market capitalization of this company is such and such. And I said, what is a market capitalization? And she said, if you're from CNN and you don't know what market capitalization, you're not worth my time. And so she hung up on me. And I thought that was like a complete slap in the face. And I was almost like shaking because I never had anyone hang up the phone on me at that point. But I realized from that experience that A, she took my call because I'm calling from CNN. And I think that comes with that as a sense of responsibility. And number two, it means I've got to do my homework. And so I think that experience, we have a saying in Korea when if you're going to be spanked, you should be spanked early on in life. And that for me was a real good experience because it kind of taught me from the get-go what it really meant to be part of this organization because I really didn't know about it very much. And I think that has been very helpful. It does discipline you in knowing the kind of company you represent and how you should represent. And then as for the other aspects of moving on, I think you do have to give more than you're required to. And luck plays a little bit of it. Sometimes you'll be really short-staffed, and sometimes you'll be going out of your daily 8-hour, 9-hour job requirement, but you'll be raising your hand to do it. I think that's important because you do get noticed. And if you do that, there will be people in your company. I've been very lucky. People notice that. And you are lucky enough to have mentors who will help you to get from point A to point B. And I certainly would not have been able to do what I did without a lot of support from my predecessors and from mentors that I have, whether it's here or in other parts of the region, who will just take my call and walk me through situations together. But I think it's because they know that you were there when they needed you as well. So it basically boils down to try to give more than you're required to on your paper, your job spec, and I think then your colleagues will notice that.
Desiree, your success, what's it down to? Hard work? Luck?
Absolutely agree with Elena. I think, first of all, you have to work hard. I think be hardworking and be humble. And I think you do succeed in life through the generosity of others. It's about whether or not someone gives you a break. It's about whether or not someone gives you an interview or an account or a chance to do things. So I think you have to keep your side of the game, checked. And then the rest of the time, it is really through the generosity of others. So in doing that, you facilitate by being generous yourself. So be generous with a contact, be nice to the people that are starting out, help them out. And I think I always say, you never want to be stepping on any toes because they could be connected to the butt you have to kiss one day. So, and that's worked for 18 years, and I'm going to stick with it.
And what would you say is the recipe of your success?
I'm sorry, I'm still reeling from that. That's a great one. I'll have to quote that one. I agree wholeheartedly with everything that Alana and Desiree have said, except about the 99% of hard work, because I think that hard work will get you about, I'd say, 70% of the way. And I totally believe that it is a grind, and you do have to be very proactive and give more than just what you're told to do. That, if your job is this remit, then it's always about thinking about how you can apply more to the business and thinking holistically about what company you operate in, how you can add value, and thinking beyond what your boss tells you to do or what your original remit was to add value to the business. I think the remaining 40% I'd divide up between a certain amount of luck. There is luck and fate involved in certain things, but there's also chemistry. The people that you're with, do you have the chemistry to make everything work? Does everything fall into place? Do you have the chemistry to create synergy within your team so that when you have an idea, your creative director can actually envisage it? Or, if you have a key vision that you want to achieve, your team can help you understand that and execute it. So there's a certain amount of chemistry, there's a certain amount of luck, there's also a certain amount of timing, because no matter how brilliant you are and how hard you work, if the timing's not meant to be or if you're not in the right environment, it's just not going to happen, and you can't push it any further than that. So I think there's a confluence of lots of different things, some of them belonging to the universe that are out of your control, and some of them within your control. And I think all you can do is obviously control what you can, but also know when to say it's not happening, move on.
We've got a few men in the room, a lot of women, and mostly in the media industry. So let's get on to the women thing for just a second. I mean, with all the success that you've had, is it has it been different, or are your struggles different because you're women? Elena, do you think you've had harder time or anything different in your career?
No, I guess it's the playing level field question, but I really don't. I mean, maybe I've been lucky enough to choose a field that is very generous to women. We have a lot of women in the media field. My boss is a male, but if I look at his executive staff, half of them are women. So I don't feel I'm walking into a situation with one of my arm behind my back. It may have to do a little bit with my upbringing as well. As a child, my mother was working, so that was my reality. And having a mother who worked in Korea in the 80s is very, very rare. But I've always seen her juggle work, life, family obligations, and it managed. I mean, I'm not, we turned out, I have a younger brother as well, but we turned out okay. But that was my reality. So I never knew there was another part to it. It's only when I start to work and I start to hear about the glass ceiling and people ask me so many questions about that, then you become really conscious of it. But I think there's a power of not being conscious of it. It's like the Nike slogan, you just go out and do it. And so I never walked into a situation thinking, I'm a female and he's a male. Who's gonna choose who? So I think that's really important. It's the mindset that you have. Don't walk into a situation with a deficit. There's a lot of strengths by being a woman, I'm sure, versus a man. Just use it to your best abilities. And I know there's a lot of marketing out there, a lot of talk out there, a lot of tweets out there. Can women make it? Yes, maybe there are difficulties. There is an issue where a lot of the board members of the Fortune 500 are still not, it's predominantly men. So there are substantive issues. But I would just say for anyone who's in a career path, just don't think about that. Like I said, you've got to go do it. You've got to make a difference and try to make a difference. And if you do that, I believe you will get ahead. And like I said, my boss's management team, half of them are women. So I really don't feel that I'm walking in with some sort of deficit.
Do you think because you're a woman, you've encouraged more women around you in your team? Is that just a natural aspect of it?
No, I'm not. Diversity is a very big part of our company. Like any big major company, I think you would have diversity groups. But I honestly just look at the person. The one thing you asked about success is, Andrew Stevens emailed me. He's one of our anchor correspondents, and he goes, "So Elena, what's your success?" And I said, "I hire people like you, which is what my success is." And it really is. It's not about, do I want to give a break to women or someone who's a different nationality. I do want a diverse group. I think we're successful because we have diverse opinions. And I think that's really important to have that. And so someone from all parts of the world, we're like a mini United Nations in a way, but I think that's what makes us really strong. Because if you had one type of individual, we all know, you just can't be successful as a team.
Desiree, the level playing field question. Do you think it's been different or harder for you as a woman in your industry?
I think in Hong Kong, I think generally speaking, it hasn't been that difficult because I think when you're breaking a story, it doesn't matter whether you're a guy or a girl. If you happen to stumble into something, you will break the story and that will get you recognized. Of course, I volunteer for the Women's Foundation. I do feel that in many situations, women do operate at a disadvantage. I think very luckily in media, we do not, just because as Elena and Anne has demonstrated, I mean, you can get ahead by working hard because it is actually quite a individual type of work that we do. I don't take advantage of that. I think that when we are dealing with people, I think it doesn't really matter whether they're male or female. I think when women talk about, oh, I've got family obligations, well, guys do too. And I think it's really important to actually treat everybody as an equal. And for me, I always, like I said with Elena, I mean, you have to be diversified. I speak Chinese. I speak Chinese in the office. I run an English magazine. I have expat staff working for me, and I said, I'm not going to switch my language because of you, because you're in Hong Kong. If you don't understand, that's your problem. So, I mean, part of it is not just about having the sort of male-female divide. It's really having the East-West divide, because we do live in Hong Kong, and we do grapple with this every single day. But when you face it with, some convincing notion that we're all equal and there's no one that's better than another, and you're only judged by what work you produce at the end of the day, I think it's been pretty good.
So why do we have women networks? Do we need them in order to succeed, or is it really a level playing field if we still have these networks that we set up?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is, as Desiree and Alana both said, it's definitely easier for women in media and in entertainment, which are two industries that I've worked quite heavily in. But I would say that one of the biggest enemies for us succeeding, and one of the reasons why we do need these women's networks, is I think we don't really have faith in ourselves. We personally have gender issues, I think, and maybe one of the things that has made Sheryl Sandberg's book, the Lean In book, so successful is because it kind of validated to women that they need to believe in themselves and actually see themselves in those board positions, see themselves in C-suite positions, which a lot of women don't. They envisage the fat cat kind of male C-suite executive as, that's not the person they are. But I think the world is being reinvented, and I think about the women that are successful today. Sheryl Sandberg, you've got Sony Pictures has got Amy Pascal, you've got Anne Sweeney at the head of Disney Media Networks, and there are so many great examples of women that actually carry excellent business success with fulfilling family lives as well. So I think the level playing field is largely within ourselves, and certainly within the media industry. And if women would actually sit up and believe in themselves as much as anything else, honestly, they would find a lot of other people believe more in themselves, in them.
That's really interesting. There are microphones, and I'd like to ask people in the audience to raise their hand and ask questions. So if you have a question, please raise your hand, tell us your name, and the microphones are over there. Anyone want to go first? Over here in the hard-to-reach corner at the side of the room.
I'm Kathy Chon from Catch-On Communications. My question has to do with the future of journalism and media. And do you feel individually in your roles that the industry is under threat with functional obsolescence, given the fact that everybody today is a thought leader? You have, ongoing encroachment of online platforms with bloggers and so forth. So just what are your views? I mean, I often get asked by students about, what are their prospects in the field of journalism? And I'll be very candid, and I often say, change your career, because it's a slowly diminishing career. So am I wrong or right?
Who wants to go first or take a stab at that?
I guess I will. I would encourage your students to go into journalism. Yes, I do remember during the Sichuan earthquake, that was my first experience with Twitter. I mean, who knew? Now the company is going to go public, but that was the first time I heard about what Twitter was and about the Sichuan earthquake through them. That digital landscape has certainly impacted the traditional television medium. I can see it just by the way that ever since the dot-com boom, we didn't think much of that area. We thought that would be it. But if I look at even my newsroom, how much we're integrating the digital team into our television members, it really is a force to be reckoned with. Everyone here has a mobile phone, and even Desiree's very dumb Motorola will still be able to send a text, and you'll be able to be a journalist in itself. But I do believe that there's a process about verification that you do not get from the likes of Twitter, from Weibo, and from all these different digital platforms. And I do believe people do want to know what's going on. They want to know what the noise is about, but they also want to know what the truth is about and about the verification process. I think it's very healthy for us to have an industry like the digital industry in doing what it's doing. It keeps us on our toes. We get information from really far places. We never thought we can reach people. But still, we need to verify, and I think that's really, really important. And I think people will always want to know that if they turn to a CNN, they turn to a Wall Street Journal, they turn to Reuters, they turn to these outlets, that they will get the news and they will get the facts. And then they can go to these other places and participate in the discussion what they think about a situation. But I really do believe that it's not dead. We're evolving. And the reason I know it's not dead as well, maybe we think of it so much in the prism of a Western media industry. I travel quite extensively in Asia Pacific already, like in Pakistan, all these different places that are quite nascent are starting to really sprout 24/7 news channels. And I can tell you, these people wouldn't be setting up these 24/7 news channels if they didn't think there was a business for it, or if they didn't think there was an audience for it.
Interesting. We had a debate at the club the other night as to whether social media was wiping out journalism, and I agree with you. I think it's still a force, a very important one. Desiree, do you have a view?
It's interesting because Time Out is a very young magazine, so when we first started out, we already had to have some sort of a digital strategy. But I just want to say that it's not so much about something wiping out something else. It's about really the pie being enlarged. When you think about it, a lot of people maybe would be too lazy to read newspapers or too busy to actually watch a news program. But through Twitter, through Facebook, through whatever means, they have been more involved in the news. And by being more involved in the news, you develop taste. It's like shopping. Maybe you bought Gap jeans when you were younger and now you're wearing A&F or 7 jeans or whatever. It's about developing your personal taste. So whether or not you would like your news from CNN because you're sitting in a hotel room, or whether you would like news from the SCMP, or whether you would like, interesting stories from Time Out, we all have a different voice. And I think by growing the pie, you actually develop a wider audience which is more receptive to information. And this is what we're here to do. We do it with our own take, but at the same time, you don't try to be you don't try to be overtaking another person's role. You all play your own role. But I think overall, if the pie is getting bigger, it just means more people are interested in getting information. And for me, that's interesting.
And do you have a marketing perspective on it, the future of journalism?
Completely. I mean, certainly over the course of my career, I've seen changes and transitions in lots of different industries. And notably, I think the music industry has changed and the movie industry has changed. I mean, music industry, everyone's saying with Napster, it was going to die. Who's going to want to buy records anymore? And okay, people don't buy records, but what happened was the industry reinvented itself in a way that actually people would consume more music, not less. So the artists that produced the music, the original content, actually proliferated and actually prospered through a system. And of course, it's harder to make money, so they've reinvented ways of making money. They're making more money through live events, more direct connection, more of that authentic experience. Similarly, with movies, I think years ago, people were saying with the advent of TV home systems and such that nobody was going to go to the cinema anymore. So cinemas were looking like they were going to close down, and certainly for a period of time when the economy was bad, you would see the odd, in England, you'd see these Odeon cinemas that were ramshackle, dumps. But then you know what? You get these AMC cineplexes popping up and they become entirely new experiences. You still need the original content of fantastic movies to put in them, and people are still gravitating to leaving the home environment to go out to see a movie. And I think newspapers are going through exactly the same transition now, as is all news media, where yes, there is a proliferation of new news content all over the place, and I liken that to running down a street and having literally millions of flyers thrown at you. You can read all of them, you can read some of them, whatever. Which ones do I read? And at that point, certainly verified information from a trustworthy source is really important. Knowing what you want to consume and finding that home, that particular doorway to go into, because it's going to be more of what you want, is important as well. So I think that's why the news industry is not going to die, journalism is not going to die, because original content will always be important, and knowing where to find the best of that content for your own taste is also going to be important.
Phew, we're safe. Questions around the room, and we have some journalism students as well. Do not feel shy. It's a good chance to ask questions or bring up some ideas. Over
yes.
here on the veranda.
My name is Angelina Draper. I have a quick question. Last month, the Director General of the BBC announced, quite surprisingly, that at least 50% of all of the high-profile broadcast radio shows conducted around the country should be conducted by women, so effectively setting quotas. In an environment where approximately 50% of the employees are already female, but not in the front line, if you want, not representing, not the face or the voice of the company. How do you feel about quotas? Are they a necessary evil, or are they something that we can do very well without in an industry, as you say, that actually has quite a lot of women in it, but not necessarily in the front line?
Interesting. Who wants to take a stab at that one? Quotas. Should we have them?
I don't know. I've never had to make a decision based on quotas. I've never gone into a hiring situation and said, does this fit my quota equation? And I don't think that's how I want to hire someone. I think we're successful because we hire the best people. They bring a lot of diversity, and as I said, I have a fantastic management team, and because they're good, they hire good people. And if we make mistakes, we make amendments very quickly. I think that's what's important. I'd rather concentrate on that instead of having to look at hiring based on quotas. Because if you say we have to hire in quotas, that has a domino impact. So what if the person doesn't turn out to be very good, or we made a mistake? Do we just live with the person because it's hired in the bucket of a quota? You can imagine, I mean, I've got legal team here. You can imagine that would cause a little bit of issue. So I'm not a fan of quotas. I'd rather hire the best person.
Desiree?
I totally agree with Elena, because I think that to be in the news business, you have to be egalitarian, because you're actually giving a voice to people who don't have a voice in the first place. So I think by setting quota, it's almost like saying, okay, well, let's have a certain percentage of stories from Pakistan, or a certain amount of stories from New York, or whatever. I think you can't really play it that way. I think for media itself, because the attention span of everyone is so short, you can't really put a system into a place where it really evolves at every single moment of the day. I don't think it works. I think it's about what Anne said about chemistry between people. I think you can't have a quantitative analysis and actually ensure that it works without really knowing how everyone fits in the puzzle. So I don't believe in that.
And before you were saying, in a way, women are their own worst enemies. It's our self-image. And if you don't give young women opportunities or put women in visible places, does that take away from them wanting to put themselves forward? In a sense, a quota kind of does that.
Well, my guess is that the 50% rule was more of a PR thing than anything else. I personally, I'm not going to be
I love the marketing perspective on that.
I wouldn't be as black and white as to say I don't believe in quotas, because I think that quotas help in some way progress thinking. Although I personally don't set quotas, like Alana and Desiree, I don't set quotas on do I want girls or do I want boys in my team, or do I prefer to work in an environment where there's a good balance of male and female. At the end of the day, like the Women's Foundation have this quota system of the 30% club with women on boards. Now, I think that's a good thing, because at the end of the day, boys are very heavily dominant on boards, and girls don't seem to get a look in. Now, is that because of girls, or is that because of the boys? You know, it's hard to say, but by setting a quota, it actually enables them to have a vision of what they want to achieve, knowing the benefits that women can bring to the situation. So that is a quota I do believe in. And there are other quotas, such as diversity within a company. If a company is dominantly male, like in Japan, for example, I mean, that's probably the best example recently, where Japan was saying, I think we'd better start investing in women in our executive teams because we don't have women. Now, that's good because they've actually made a conscious decision. They probably will set some quotas within certain companies to say, we need more women. And I think that's okay. You can have that as a kind of a target to set for yourselves where it breaks the norm that is not a healthy norm. I think it's one thing to say, and maybe that's what the BBC is doing. They're trying to break some unhealthy norms. So I think if it's used in that way as a target, then it's actually a healthy thing.
Do we have anyone from the BBC here who can comment on that or speak? Nope. Okay. Juliana was here.
I think it's also important to add that when you actually set a quota, you actually don't set it in a patronizing kind of way. It has to have a positive impact. I think if you actually say, okay, we have to have a quota because something's actually wrong here, you're already victimizing the person that you're setting a quota for. So
That's interesting.
That's what I would say.
Quite a loaded word, quota. A few more questions we have time for. Over here, and then we'll move down.
Hi, I'm Britton Clenn at ATV News. I just wanted to know your opinion on sending female reporters into war zones or conflict areas. yeah, what's your opinion on that? How would you make a decision as to whether to send a male or female reporter? Would it impact your decision based on the fact that they were a female?
Well, number one, we never send anyone who doesn't want to go. That's very important in our culture, especially at CNN, where safety is probably the top of my minds of all our managers. We have an alias for CNN safety that from all the top of the corporation is on, and that's how we keep track of our staff. As for sending them to war zones, we have to think about that. I'm sure you know of the cases that happened in Egypt as well. I had a situation where we had a reporter who was just really passionate about going into Afghanistan, and for a while, we had to walk it through very thoroughly with the individual, with the management team, with the security staff that we would be hiring to accompany the individual. And if we go through those processes and the person is completely aware of all the a variety of scenarios that may happen, and they're comfortable doing that, and we feel comfortable, then we will send them out. But we spend heavily on the front end of these deployments, and it's for these different reasons. So I wouldn't say, do we assign a story because a person is a female or male, but I think in war zone scenarios, just what we've seen in the Middle East last year or 2 years ago, we definitely have those kind of discussions quite thoroughly.
We have one more question here.
I'm Lynn Grebstad, GHC Asia. I'm a great fan of the television program, The Newsroom. I'm sure many of you are. And I just wanted to ask Alana, how close to reality is all that manic production going on in the back of the newsroom?
So what? I didn't hear, sorry.
I just said I'm a great fan of The Newsroom program. I'm sure many of you are.
With Manita?
Sorry?
Oh, our morning newsroom.
The HBO newsroom.
Oh, newsroom.
The newsroom.
Come on.
And I just, it's manic and crazy. I just wondered how close to reality all that is, running the CNN newsroom.
How manic and crazy is your life?
Yes, exactly. You seem very calm and collected to me.
No, Aaron Sorkin, love Aaron Sorkin. I was a fan of his West Wing. I have to say, I only watched 3 episodes of the first season because I just couldn't watch it. But I heard second season is very good, so I'm looking forward to that. It depends. I don't think it's as crazy as he visualizes. Maybe it's a bit crazy like that in Fox, based on the character that I've seen in the first season, first 2 episodes. It's not as crazy as that, but when it comes to breaking news, I do think there is a heightened sense of energy. There's a heightened sense of an adrenaline that happens, especially in the field as well. You do get a pump, you get a kick, and I definitely know that. There's 2 different news. I came from financial news in New York, and then the CNN newsroom is a lot more all types of news. There is a sense of manic craziness that happens in financial newsrooms, I think. It really depends on the markets. When the markets are tanking like 200 points, there is a craziness that happens. I think in the newsroom, it's not as to the level of the newsroom program that you just mentioned. But when it comes to breaking news, I think it's a different beast.
We have time for one more question with Florence, and then we're going to wrap it up.
I'm Florence de Changy, I report for the French newspaper Le Monde. I wanted to ask, clearly men and women are not the same, otherwise we wouldn't have a breakfast dedicated to women. What are we better at? And then what do you see as our weaknesses, especially maybe in the newsroom and in the media? And I'm thinking in particular emotion that we're not supposed to handle as well as tough guys, but your experience would be interesting.
And do you want to start on that one?
Emotion we're not meant to handle as well as tough guys. I don't know, I think giving birth is rather emotional, and I think we handle that pretty well. I think, men and women are different. Now, I'm not journalistic by training, and my background is really marketing. So it's a little bit difficult for me to comment on whether there's a huge difference for women and men in journalism. But my perception would be that women perhaps can create a different chemistry with people that they're interviewing, if I'm just talking about a normal situation, not necessarily going into a war zone or anything else, and maybe have a different degree of emotional intelligence or a different type of emotional intelligence to a man. So no matter how you cut it, ultimately there is a different dynamic between a woman and a woman, or a woman and a man, than a man and that's the simple fact of genders, and that's what makes it interesting. So if you send a woman journalist in to interview somebody, then you're going to have a slightly different chemistry between the two interviewees. So,
Desiree?
I think if you really want to think about this, I think for women, I think very slight advantage that we have, we're a bit more empathetic, because we try to put ourselves in other people's shoes because we're more caring by nature. So I think whether you're a journalist or whether you're a manager, you really want to think about your staff in a way that they're actually people, they have lives too. I think maybe men are quite focused with their work and they're quite results driven most of the time, and I think sometimes they may forget to sort of be a bit more of a mom. I think maybe for them it's something that they don't really think about. And I think for a woman being in this business, it's really helped. I think just being a better person or better friend to your employees have definitely helped me.
I don't know, I've never really thought about it in those terms, but I think the empathy factor, and the ability to understand the different strings that pulls at an individual, and to be able to listen to that, because there's always a reason behind someone's performance or a situation that happens, and maybe you're able to just stick around a bit longer, to listen a bit longer, and to understand what are some of the dynamics behind that person's behavior, that situation. But overall, I mean, for me, the men and female dynamic, I talked about the editorial newsroom that we have in 9 in the morning. I kind of leave it to my deputy to talk about sports. Like, I have no interest and I don't know much about sports, but I've been lucky enough to have good deputies in the past who are just absolutely passionate about sports and make sure that we're not missing out on anything that's related to that. And also their various interests. That's where I think the dynamic happens between a male and female. And age, people who are millennials and non-millennials, it's the different type of interest they have at the stages of their lives, and they bring it all to the forefront of an editorial discussion. And so for me, that's where I see the strengths or the differences. I don't kind of categorize it as particularly a male or a female. So it's that diverse conversation that I think everyone brings to the table.
Thanks. We're going to sort of wrap it up because I know some people have to get off to work. And this talk really today is about sort of secrets of success. There's a lot of budding people in the media industry here. So if you could give us a little bit of a takeaway each, a word of advice about how to succeed or what you really need to do in order to be everything that you can be, to everyone out there. Maybe Anne? Advice.
Okay, this is going to sound very canned because you did prep me up on this, and I thought, oh my God, this is such a big question for this time in the morning.
Yes, it is.
I think if I had to encapsulate it into a single philosophy, it would be to have faith in yourself, have faith in others, and also have faith in a future that you want.
Okay. Desiree.
2 words, they all begin with an H: hard work, humility. That's it. Finished. That's all you need.
For me, it's going back to management. I think it's important to hire well, because especially in a media organization, you can't complete things by yourself. If I want to be successful, I need to have a really strong deputy. I need to have a strong management team. They need to have a strong team that supports them. We cannot put a show together with one person's ideas or one person's work. If the person doing the prompter doesn't do it well, then every beautiful word that my writer has written, my anchor's not going to be reading them. And so I think the art of hiring is really, really important. It's gut-driven, it's instinctual. We get a lot of resumes we're lucky to have. A lot of them have really great GPA scores, but it's that X factor, how this person is going to fit into the environment we've created. And so if I can create that environment for my staff and they like working in that environment, then they're going to be successful, which means then I'm going to be successful. So I'd spend a lot of time in whatever tricks or whatever you know, and how it is that you can hire well, and also to know very quickly if you've made a mistake and how you amend that, I think is also really, really important.
Thank you. Some really wise words, and it's a privilege and an honor to be with you here today, especially at this hour of the morning. A lot to take in. So, Elena, Desiree, and Anne, thank you very much for your time. Thanks to the Women's Media Network. And we have the room for a while, so the idea as well is to have some time to chat amongst each other. Maybe you all are here for a few questions if people want to come up. Thanks for coming, and have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you for all the guys who turned up.